Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, December 27th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy joined by Jonah Booker. Always great to see you on a Friday, Jay Book.
Hey, happy Friday to you and happy holidays, my friend.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a great Christmas. Hope everyone is having a great holiday season. And we know we're going to be having a happy new year if the Buckeyes take care of business in 5 days. It's crazy. It's just 5 days away. Like
I
it's
know
it's
it.
just wild. All right. Brass tacks.
Ooh,
All right, now I got mine typed in as we are wont to do. As you announce your prediction for Ohio State, Oregon, I will post mine. All right, drum roll, please. Here's J Book's prediction for Ohio State, Oregon, 5 days from now.
I got this one being a high scoring affair, Dave. Buckeyes 42, Oregon 31.
Ooh, so we're not that close. Hey, we both have Ohio State winning. That's the only important thing. So you have
Yeah,
42-31. I like that. I got 28-24 Ohio State.
yeah. So
28. What's interesting? I
yeah,
almost went 35-24. Then we would have had the exact same margin, but I went 28-24.
but we
Yeah, go
both
ahead.
we both have the Buckeyes winning, but this one probably will be the biggest gap that we've had all season long, and I can understand why because with a rematch here, you think about the Oregon offense, it has the potential to be high power, but at the same time, the Buckeyes defense they're playing some of their best football, and you mentioned behind the stage. Go ahead and get the stat that is very very fascinating leading into this ball game.
Yeah, man. I mean, we all know since the Oregon game, they came out and said, there was no media availability the following week. So then when we got
Yeah.
Ryan Day, so it was like 10 days after the game. And obviously, all the questions was about like the defense in the Oregon game. He said, we're re-engineering the defense is the phrase he used a couple different times, re-engineering the defense. And then after I watched Ohio State from that point forward, my translation of that was now Jim Knowles is doing what he wants to do. There's no
Yeah.
like, you can do what you want to do, but Larry might have a little veto power over the front four because if you watch Ohio State on film, they now look like schematically the defense that Jim Knowles ran at Oklahoma
Hmm.
State, just now here in Columbus with much better players. So the stat that you and I were talking about, it's crazy. I knew they'd been playing well. What I did not know, Jay Book, was since the Oregon game, Ohio State's defense has given up 0 passing touchdowns. They've
That's
forced
amazing.
5 interceptions. I mean, the quarterback rating of the opposing quarterback rating is minuscule. They're not giving up many yards per attempt. They're not giving up many yards per game. They're cutting down on completions and 0 touchdown passes given up by this Ohio State defense since the Oregon game. They've only given up 4 all year,
Yeah.
2 to Dylan Gabriel. I mean, Jim Knowles in this defense, whatever they re-engineered, they did a great job with that.
Yeah. I'm calling it right now. This is the Denzel Burke redemption game right here. I think he's going to play really well. The defense, they're playing some of their best football. When you pop on that Tennessee tape or you watch that replay, however, that you can record it, the one thing that really stands out, it looked like Silver Bullets defense. I mean, they were absolutely laying the lumber to Tennessee. The thing about this Oregon game that really fascinate me, Dave, Penn State had about 300, almost 300 rushing yards against Oregon. I think they exposed something, but with that being said, you're not Penn State, okay? The recipe that they rolled out against Tennessee, I do think is the right recipe to put up 40 points on this Oregon offense. Get the ball to your playmakers, okay? Jeremiah Emeka, and quietly, G. Scott is having a outstanding stretch here. He's playing really well. Get the ball to your wideouts, okay? Put that pedal down to the metal, and then what's going to happen is you're going to have to Oregon's going to have to take a safety out of the box. Their logical thinking going into this game is the last time that we played, the last tape that's available was in the Big Ten championship when Penn State ran all over our defense. They're going to think, okay, Ohio State's going to try to mimic that. The problem is that's not really Ohio State's game. They're more explosive on the outside than what Penn State has. There's not a Penn State wide receiver that can start right now for this Buckeye football team. So go ahead, get the ball to your playmakers. Once they start softening that box, Dave, that's when you come back and start to use some of that action, that misdirection in that run game that you were able to do against Tennessee, where you racked up about 150 yards quietly on the ground there because Tennessee at that point, their head was spinning. Chip had that defensive coordinator on roller skates. That's why I think Ohio State has an opportunity to put up 40 points in this game. The question is, can the defense get critical stops? They're going to need, I say, at least 2 to 3 stops in this game. If they can get to 2 to 3 stops in this game, Dave, I truly believe that they're going to win this by 2 scores. The one thing that really stood out to me, and right before we hopped on this, I was watching the replay, Sky Cam with the Tennessee Ohio State replay. If you watch it, watch the tempo that the offense was operating with. That's kind of what you and I have been talking. We actually talked about that leading up into the game, was the purpose of them deciding to go slow, when if they were to speed it up, I think it can really put a lot of pressure on the opposing defense. Watch that Tennessee defensive line, hands on the hips,
Mhm.
absolutely winded, sucking wind. You can see, because it was so cold out, you can see the smoke, and those guys were just absolutely gassed. Now, Oregon's going to get their star defensive player Birch back for this game. What type of football conditioning is he truly in? What type of rust will Oregon have after being off for so long? The key for me is, can this Buckeye team start fast? If they can start fast, and as the Penn State posters like to say on their board, if you let the Buckeyes get on top of you, they're going to pound your face in like hamburger meat.
I love it. Well, let's get to Ohio State's O line, because you're right. I mean, like,
Yeah.
um, now Buckeyes lost Josh Simmons, quarter and a half into the was he ordered? It was at the second quarter of the Oregon game, I believe. Simmons was hurt.
Yep, about second quarter.
Second quarter. And then Zen actually played decent, actually, which is crazy considering how much he did not play well against Nebraska 2 weeks later. But this offensive line played surprisingly well
Yeah.
against Tennessee. All you heard was about the depth of Tennessee's defensive line, which is hilarious considering the fact they were gassed, as you're mentioning. It wasn't just like, yeah, they've got a stud like top four. They have no depth. Everybody's like, yeah, they're really, really good and they're super deep. It's like, okay. Man, I don't know what took so long with Luke Montgomery to see the field, but he
My
played well.
goodness.
Sireveld, Austin Sear, is it Sireveld or Sireveld? Whichever one.
Cerevel.
He played good, and he had to
Yeah.
go. He played right guard and left guard. He was the one that was playing both sides. When Tegra was in, Tegra was on the right side. When Luke was in, he was on the left side. Then in Austin playing both. Those three guys rotated throughout the game, and Donovan Jackson played great. Josh Fryer's a guy that's not getting enough love. Even though he got banged up, he was in there
Yeah.
gutting it out. He played well. Hinsman at center. Let's hope they can do it again against this
Well,
good.
hold on, Dave. We got to give Tegra his props now.
Yep.
We would be quick to point out if Tegra didn't play well. And to be fair, Tegra played really well this game. I know he gave up that first pressure there that ended up in a sack that was called back because of the face mask. But
Right.
that game going forward, when Tegra was in, Tegra did his thing. So he gets his props. And I love that Jack Sawyer told him, like, hey, man, I'm proud of you into the game, because everybody was down on Tegra after that Michigan game. And Jack Sawyer went over there and told him, like, hey, good job. But you hit it. Luke Montgomery. What? Why did it take so long? Like, kid play outstanding. He played outstanding football. I mean, that's what we talk about when you say, hey, them Ohio junkyard dogs in the middle at the guard spot. They were moving bodies, moving that Tennessee front. You want to rotate 9, 10 guys in, no problem with us. We're going to maul you. And if they can do that against Oregon, they're going to be headed to the semifinals.
Yeah, that was just so much fun to see. All right, now we've been talking up this Ohio State defense, and rightfully so. They've been
Right.
playing great since the Oregon game. Now they haven't faced an offense nearly as good as Oregon's since the Oregon game, but I mean, it's this simple to me, man. If they can make Gabriel uncomfortable, which they did not do at all in the
Yep.
first meeting, I mean, he looked like he was just out there, just as comfortable as could be. If they can make him uncomfortable, and if that includes sacks, great. It doesn't have to include sacks. If it does, great. But they have to hit him. They have to knock him around. They have to make him uncomfortable. Limit big plays, obviously. This is the Denzel Burke revenge game, as you mentioned. But the biggest thing, obviously, not breaking news here, you got to make Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable.
Exactly. The one thing that they failed to do in the first matchup, they never moved him off his spot. He was entirely too comfortable back there. For whatever reason, Jim Knowles decided not to really bring any pressure. That was the biggest gripe coming out of that game, was Dylan Gabriel had all time to throw. And that kind of jump started the revamp of the defense because you remember, Dave, right after that Oregon game, that's when Nick Saban came out and said
Yes.
their pass rush and how they get after the quarterback was antiquated. His words on the Pat McAfee show.
Yep.
And Ryan Day actually came out post game that Monday, Tuesday, whenever he spoke to the media, and Ryan Day didn't deny it. He just like,
He
yeah,
agreed with it because
he
he was asking
agreed
point
with,
blank, "Hey, did you hear what Nick Saban said?" You're waiting for Ryan Day to be like to lie. Not that
yeah,
really lying when a coach does this. I really don't mind this. Really don't consider it lying when coaches at press conferences. I kind of give them a free pass on certain things. I was waiting for him to be like, "No, I didn't hear that. That was hilarious." You're right. That was hilarious. That was the press conference I was referring to earlier. So it was about
hmm
9 or 10 days after the game because we didn't get them. We didn't
oh
get
yeah,
the
they had a
we got
bye.
A like briefly after the game, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, they
And
had a
so it was like
bye.
9 or 10 days later. One of my I wish I would knew who it was. I'd give him props. Asked him point blank, "Did you hear what Nick Saban said? He said your pass rush is antiquated. Do you agree
Yeah.
with that or disagree?" And he's like, "Well, given what we just saw, I would have to agree."
Yeah, and that was like the major storyline coming out of that game, Dave, was they never made Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable. He stayed on his spot. He went through his progressions. He could have made a deli sandwich back there because he had all time to throw. They were trying to
All the best, Deli.
I know it. And they were trying to generate pressure with four-man rush, and they were never able to get home. For whatever reason, Jim Knowles never decided to go after Gabriel. And if you follow Dylan Gabriel's career throughout his 22 years in college, he's always struggled whenever someone heated him up with pressure. You bring pressure to Dylan Gabriel, and that's when he tends to struggle. I'm going to be curious to see what Jim Knowles has learned from this game. You guys are going to get Jim Knowles, Dave. If you get a
Next, yeah.
second question, ask him and say, "Hey, you guys didn't get pressure against Dylan Gabriel the first game. What did you learn that you think can probably be implemented in this game to be more successful in generating pressure?" Because that's going to be the story. That's going to be the end all be all when it comes to this defense. Because if they can get pressure, even with their front four, like they were able to do against Tennessee and Nico, because you watch that game, Jack Sawyer and JT absolutely destroyed the Tennessee tackles,
Mhm.
and Tyleek was extremely disruptive in the middle. And then when they rotated Kenyatta Jackson in, even though that wasn't a roughing the passer
No.
that Kenyatta Jackson got called for, he was still extremely productive. But you're not going to be able to just single handedly get off the field against Oregon with a four-man rush. You're going to have to dial some heat up on Dylan. And if they're able to do that and get off the field on third down, because that was the other thing with the defense, Dave, they couldn't get off the field on third down that first matchup. And all that being said, they still had an opportunity to win that football game. And it's so funny because my wife, she follows the Buckeyes, not as aggressive as I do, and she watched the Oregon game and she goes, "You guys gave that game away." Basically, the person was like, "You don't make those mistakes like you did in the first game, and you managed to clock better. You guys should win this by easily." Like she's so confident, and it's like gives me a little feeling like, "Hey, if you confident," because I'm always the one that's on edge, and I'm like, I don't know," but now I'm like, you know what? Them boys play the way that they've been playing, like they did last Saturday, and the silver bullets get after that Oregon offense, like we watch against Tennessee. I think they can win this game by 2 scores. Now, I might be doing a disservice. I might be logging on here talking to you next week, Dave. It's like, what the heck was I thinking? Predicting that the defense is going to give up 31 points because they haven't really done it since Oregon, but it's going to be an absolute battle. I can't wait.
And it's so cool that it's the Rose Bowl,
Yeah.
but it's not like the Rose Bowl. I mean, it was cool 3 years ago winning the Rose Bowl, but what was it? It was a consolation game. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Still was fun, but it was like it was like the Rose Bowl was looked at like, oh, remember what the Rose Bowl used to be. It's so cool being there. Pretty much a
Mhm.
relic. Now, to me, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. You know, everything that comes with it, the sun setting, the glow, the beautiful like sunset over the San Gabriel Mountains where it glows. And it's one of those things that people talk about where sometimes stuff like that, it's kind of cheesy when people talk about it that much. That's not. That is legit.
Right.
But you get all that, and it's the quarterfinal of the CFP. And one more thing, I don't know how you feel, man. To me, it feels like not just the national championship game. It's not 100% the national championship game, but I feel like whoever wins this game is going to be the national champion most likely. So it's almost like the pseudo national championship game. So, man, so much fun. We're just 5 days away, which is crazy.
Yeah. And you're right. I do think that the winner of this game will probably go on to win the national championship here. The the thing that Ohio State has to avoid though is Will Howard has to protect the football. That's going to be first and foremost and critical. If he can protect the football, because I went back and I tweeted it out like, hey, watch this drive. It was the first time that Ohio State got the football in the third quarter against Tennessee. It was you have that kind of clock in your head. You go 1,000, 1,000, and you watch Will. Ball was out. Ball was extremely accurate. He was putting it into a position where he was allowing his wide receivers to pick up those extra yards. You think about it, Dave. What he was knocking on the door for 300 yards the last time that he faced Oregon. And everybody blames that one slide late, but overall, when you look at it, Will played really well that first matchup. I say this: if you can get that same production from Will Howard that you got game one, you're going to win this football game. And the reason I say that is because one, you're not going to. I don't think there's a situation to where Denzel Burke is going to get absolutely cooked the way that he got cooked that first game. And you take away a couple plays here, the Juckins fumble when he had a broken hand, that generated 2 points for Oregon there. So if you can get that same production from Will Howard, you're going to be just fine.
And now we see again, to circle back on this, what I'm seeing now is Jim Knowles is in complete control of this defense. I always harken back, Jay Book, to one play in particular against Oregon in the first game. There was a play, I'm sure you'll remember this, where the corners were on press coverage. The defensive line, the 2D tackles dropped in coverage. So typically, if you're going to do that, if you're going to have press coverage, you're going to want to have pressure on the quarterback, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was clear the back seven and the front four were not on the same page at all.
Yeah.
So I think, and we have a great thread on Bucknuts right now. Our community thread with Bucknuts and Duck territory, it is lit.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But a lot of I'm okay with this because, hey, let's just play possum, kind of like the Tennessee game. Like, yeah, how's
Right.
little Ohio State ever going to have a chance in this game?
Right.
They still think this is the exact same defense. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, personnel's the same, but it's not the same defense. You're not going to see things like both D tackles drop in coverage when Ohio State's on like zero coverage on the outside. So that's another thing, man. I mean, I just feel like if Ohio State can score 31 points in this game, they'll win the game, unlike the last one.
The other aspect, and we also touched on this, you and I, last week, talking about Tennessee and Tennessee tempo. Ohio State, I thought, handled that tempo really well. And that was the one issue in that first game. I felt like Dan Lanning and that Oregon offense caught the defense with their pants down quite a bit of times because of the tempo. And I have mentioned this several times. There's a play in that Oregon game where they were going so fast with tempo that Sonny Styles was communicating with Cody Simon, and Sonny's back was to the line of scrimmage, and they had already snapped the football, and he had to whip around and try to figure out what the heck is going on. So they just were not getting lined up quick enough. And Jim Knowles had talked about it because I think somebody in the media had brought it up about how Tennessee's their rhythm and their tempo is something that has been a major advantage. He said, "Hey, my defense has been built for this." After experiencing a tempo offense the previous game against Tennessee, I think is going to really carry over for the Oregon game because there is no way Oregon's going to go that much faster than what Tennessee was able to go because Tennessee's one of the fastest paces play offenses in all of college football. On top of that, you also got previous tape the last time that you matched up against Oregon to kind of mimic, like, okay, how fast were they getting the plays off? You're going to have an analyst in the background charting to say, hey, they were getting a play off every 3 to 5 to 10 seconds that they were able to do it. So once we go through our practices, the scout team offense needs to be getting plays off every 10 seconds to mimic what Oregon was doing. So what that does is it allows Jim Knowles and the defense to simulate the tempo and also practice getting those calls in. I think that's going to be a big deal.
A little over 20 minutes of good Ohio State, Oregon talk. We're going to be doing a lot of that for the next 5 days. Let's close the show talking about transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Buckeyes are doing a great job. It's crazy. I heard somebody make a funny analogy, and it's so true. It really like illuminates what we're experiencing right now. Imagine in the NFL after the regular season ends, right? All the teams that are eliminated from the playoffs, those players that are going to be pending free agents, they're then signing with teams like the Ravens and the Chiefs. So
It's
you're the Chiefs.
crazy.
You're going through the playoffs and you're signing free agents. That's basically what Ohio State's doing right now and other
Yeah.
teams in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs and they're signing free agents, college version, but they're doing a great job, man. I love what I'm seeing so far. Ethan Onianwa, 6'6", 345 pounds, 34 starts under his belt at Rice. Going to come in probably as a left tackle, maybe the right tackle. They also got the young man Daniels, Paris Johnson's cousin from Minnesota. I love the tight end from Purdue, Max Clare, the big running back then from West Virginia. They got a DN from Idaho State, and they're not done. Who's your favorite of the guys they got so far?
I would definitely say the Rice tackle because
Yep.
looking at the reviews, you've had NFL media that were actually surprised that he's not even declaring for the NFL because they think that he's NFL ready right now and believe that he's probably one of the best impact gets out of the transfer portal for the Buckeyes. So getting him is a huge win, especially for that offensive line. After what you witnessed with the guards, you have to feel pretty good about the guards there, Dave. I wouldn't mind seeing them getting one more tackle. I know I might be greedy here, but give me one more tackle for the simple fact that you're expecting to have another long season. You don't want to have another injury type of situation to the tackles and you're having to shuffle as much. Right now, the Buckeyes are on their 19th combination of starting offensive linemen on the year. So that kind of tells you that, hey, you can never have enough tackles. But man, that running back, they haven't had a back that big since what, Carlos Hyde?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's been a while. We were talking about that, like, yesterday. I filled in on 97.1. We were talking about Donaldson.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, 6'2", 238. Yeah, Hyde was about 235. Beanie was around there. I mean, the biggest since then it was maybe Chip. Leaving somebody
Yeah.
out. And Chip was about 220,
Yeah. But
maybe,
this
training him.
this dude is like he's like Carlos Hyde type of size,
Yeah, but bigger.
but bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an absolute unit, man. And then you get to Max Clare, the tight end from Purdue. I'm gonna say this:
Huh.
if you can put up those type of numbers at Purdue, considering how bad their offense has been over the last several years, you're an absolute baller.
Yep.
And so you're getting a major upgrade there. If you can have a 1-2 punch with Claire and Jelani Thurman, you're feeling really, really good about the tight end position there. But there's still a lot more work to be done. A couple more prospects that I definitely think they need to fill some holes on. The biggest question mark is will they actually go for the quarterback position? I'm starting to tend to think that they won't. I mean, when you got Duke out here offering 4.5 million for a Tulane quarterback. I mean, you're talking about mid quarterbacks getting that type of bag, and Duke is offering it. There's no telling what some of these other kids are asking for. But I think they might just stick with what they got here. I don't know, Dave. What do you think about the quarterback?
That's hilarious, man. That was gonna be my last question.
Yeah.
I mean, we are. We're even though our scores are not as aligned as typical, like you read my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. I think sticking with Saiyan, because I've heard all year that they believe in Saiyan, and so if that's true, as a sophomore, he should be ready to go. And I think Lincoln Keenholz is gonna stick around. You got
Yeah.
Tavian St. Clair coming in. I think if they're gonna hit the portal for a quarterback, it might be for like a Chugs type or a Tristan
Yeah.
Jebbia type. just a depth guy.
I tell you what, though, man, they need to ramp Julian saying up to about a 4,000 calorie diet. Like that,
He's not a big boy. No,
I mean, that kid is small, man.
yeah.
Like they that's the one concern. I know people are looking at that one pass that he threw that was a skipper, like he was throwing rocks into the river, trying to skip little pebbles and stuff, man. But I wouldn't take too much out of that. I'm just, we're just having fun here. But when you look at his stature, all jokes aside, he's a smallish type of quarterback, and you're going to want him to be able to hold up, taking some of the hits he's going to experience in the Big Ten. But yeah, I think you might be right. It might be more of a veteran presence that's going to be, a guy that's not necessarily going to be pushing for a starting position here, because I don't know if the Ohio State coaching staff and the foundation are going to want to pay $4 million potentially to a starting quarterback here, unless it's someone that you really believe that's going to probably be a Heisman type of candidate, or someone who's going to, automatically say, hey, with this guy, our floor is 11 wins because he's that good. I think they may just roll with the guys that they have.
Great stuff as always from J Book. Always love doing the podcast with you on Fridays or any other time, my friend. He is
All
Jonah
right.
Bolter. Really appreciate it. And guys, don't forget today, Jim Knowles, 11:30 a.m. We're getting some defensive players, and then practice. The first few periods of practice is open to us at 4 p.m. Eastern today. Thanks to J Book. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Go Bucks.